let's talk about this topic. Oops, that's the wrong topic we will be. No, we're not talking about a summer evening in ancient Greece. By the way, this TV show, this is the Big Bang Theory. And by the way, the day I really knew that I was a nerd was when I actually understood what Sheldon Cooper was talking about. That was a proof that, okay, you're a nerd. You understand what he's saying. I don't think that normal people should understand what he's saying. But I did. So now that's not the one that we will be talking about. Here we will talk about the story. Okay? Again, I know that you guys liked the story last time. However, this time the story will be more interactive. We will be talking all together. So what's the story with governmental reporting? It has different regulations, etc. Right? Okay. And why is that? Okay. So do you understand what this means? And one can explain it on this side. Chow, you were using, you did some analysis on pension data, right? Pension data in the paper where. Okay, so those examples were.
MDNA.
You also did on MDNA, but before that, like we were talking when we were trying, we did some examples with pension, etc. Yes. So, what was one of the things that you've noticed when you were doing that? Okay. Okay, so that's true. So basically what we have here is that we have even different reporting formats. So you don't have the same when you talk about a specific item. Take, for example, safety expenditures. In a certain municipality, what do you think could fall under safety expenditures? So it could be snow removal. So what about, give me another example. Sorry? Police, okay. Again? Fire department. Cross guards, right? So you have all these that could fall under the same element. The problem is that each state is a sovereign state. What does that mean? What it means is that each state, they can mandate or they can require their own reporting format. For example, the GASB requires certain, they cannot really mandate. It's not like with the private sector. So when you look at the private sector, this is basically to give you an idea. So when you look at the private sector, the SEC can mandate, and they did mandate, for example, that all publicly traded companies would report in what? They should report in XBRL, right? So those XBRL formats, there was one entity that had the authority to mandate to all those publicly traded companies. The same cannot be said about governmental reporting. So certain states, for example, like NJ, like New Jersey, there is something different about New Jersey. What is that? about the governmental reporting? Take a guess. It doesn't follow GASB. Which is to mean even the GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, they cannot really, their role is more or less like advisory. They can give a guideline. We started working on a project with them where we tried to get them to simply endorse our project, and they would be no. We can only say that we are your technical advisors, your advisors, whatever. Basically, they can give us consultant advice, something like that. But they don't want to be involved, and basically they cannot endorse it. They cannot require it or mandate it. It's different. Once we understand this, you understand why it is hard to have a standardized reporting. So here, what we're trying to get here is that you have standardized reports when it comes to the publicly traded companies, to the private sector. When we get to the public sector, it's different. Yes.
Isn't there a standardization, but they have to report in a single audit act? Because I think most of these.
That is for the federal.
Reports,
So this is when you report. There's again,
right.
like Denise mentioned earlier, you have different entities where you are required to file reports to. So let's say a municipality, they have to report to their state, right? But they also have to report to the federal government if they are, especially when they receive certain grants, federal grants, etc. That makes it hard. Why? There might be different standards. And again, what do you need to do in order to file a report? This is redundant work, right? And the funny thing with that, is that those reports, if you try to find those reports, how are you going to find them? So where can you find those reports? If you are looking for the CAFR statements, which are like the financial statement, yes, go ahead. The website of each entity, yes. Sometimes it's buried deep down in the website. So it is there. So you cannot say that it's not online. It is available. Good luck finding it. Sometimes you need to there is no link that would direct you to that file. Okay, let's say that you found it. You download it. What do you get? A PDF file. What can you do with a PDF file? Print it. Exactly. So what are PDF files? They are basically, how many of you use PDF? We all use it. Why do you use it? Why do you use PDF? Tell me, why do you use PDF?
Because it's simple.
It's what?
Simple.
It's simple. What also, there's another advantage of the PDF files. You cannot easily edit if you want to secure it, so it could be secured. Well, you can secure it up to a certain extent. You can always secure it in a way that it cannot be basically edited unless you have some experience in hacking that. Right. But for the regular user, it is basically secure. What else? The layout or the format is the same. So no matter, it is regardless of what platform you're using. If you're using a PC, a Windows PC, or if you're using Mac, or even if you're looking at it from your phone, it will always look the same. But what does that tell you? It's not dynamic. It doesn't change. Okay. You can, but it's hard to extract any information from it. So basically, it is an electronic copy of the same paper-based report. So this is, it's as if you're giving me a hard copy. When you give me a PDF file, it's as if you're giving me the same thing as hard copy. It's a scanned copy. And by the way, in many cases, you get those reports as scanned PDF files. What does that mean? So that's, okay, so it's bad enough to have it in PDF where you can just copy and paste. you can sometimes get it as a picture PDF. That's a picture. They may as well send it to you as a JPEG. Even when the PDF is searchable, where you can actually copy certain information from it, what's the problem with it? We tried to collect some data, right? You remember, Chow? So tell me, what are the problems that you ran into when you were doing that? It's very hard to extract. And why is that? Before we even get to analysis, we're still not there yet. So you see, with public data, with the private sector, if you needed to run some analysis, where do you go? CompuStat. You have different places where you can get information. You can get them in XBRL, you can get them in text, in Excel, in CSV. But when you go to PDF, there's one thing that is also problematic, even for those when you copy and paste. What is that? Have you tried, Yunsen, have you tried ever to extract some information from PDF? Okay, and what happens? It changes. What about numbers? What about tables? This is one of the problems that we faced. What happens? What happens to tables? Sophia? They are randomly displayed. So let's say if you are extracting from a file, you have sometimes to fix it manually. Now this is fine if you're doing one table or two or 10 or collecting a couple of statements. But when we do analysis, how many companies do you use? Tiffany, how many companies would you use to run analysis? Is it just one? When you're trying to do comparative analysis, for example, identify exceptions or something like that? Yeah, you have to use several companies to have a benchmark. So this benchmark, while it is easy to get in the public and the private sector, where you can simply use a database like CompuStat, where you can just extract this data. And I can show you later on Frank, which allows you to extract such data also directly in XBRL format. By the way, are you guys familiar with XBRL? Who's familiar with XBRL? That's making the assumption that you read the papers. I'm not going to cover XBRL as XBRL. This is, Professor No will later on talk about it. You see, this is a futuristic thing, so you need someone like Dr. No to do that. This requires some additional expertise. Professor No will be talking about this later on. We'll be explaining what XBRL and how the uses of XBRL. I'm not going to explain we'll see what he will be talking about. However, XBRL simply, what we're talking about today is just for you to understand that XBRL is tagged data. So when you look at a certain number, you know what this information is. Compare this to the rigidity and the problems associated with PDF. Okay, now we said that one source of information where you can download those financial statements is the website of each entity. Another place, don't say anything. Another location where you can download such data. Who can give me another source? Hint, look at the screen. Come on, I put it on purpose. I put it on purpose so that you guys read here. Emma, that's not the name of a girl. Well, it is the name of a girl, but here I'm not referring to a girl. I don't want to have trouble with my wife. So, that's not Emma, a girl. That's a place where the MSRB collects. It's a data receptacle, basically, where we have all those CAFR statements. CAFR statements are the financial statements of governmental entities. They are hundreds of pages long. Okay, so the MSRB requires that bond issuers, etc., would file and would basically would file their CAFR statements and would report to EMMA. Basically, they would file them to EMMA. EMMA, you can go there and download those CAFR statements. I'm just laying out certain problems before we actually talk about what actually happens. So if you do some research, you said like the other day, you like to do research in municipal bonds, right? Didn't you say that? Pension, government pension. Sorry, my bad, sorry. But we have people here who do research with municipal bonds. Who does that here? Any one of you guys? No? I know we have several students who do that. So let's say that you are trying to analyze those bonds. What happens? You have EMMA. They have the financial statements of all those municipalities. What's the main problem? They are PDF. This is one problem. And they? So they are PDF, and at the same time, you cannot say that safety expenditures for entity 1 means the same as safety expenditures for entity 2. You simply cannot make this assumption. You don't know what it means. You have to read each one of them to understand what they mean by that one. Plus, there's another problem. What is one of the advantages of using CompuStat, for example? Exactly. You can download, you can do batch downloads. What about EMMA? One by one. You have to download them one by one. So far we have been talking about the CAFR statements. This is the whole thing. But in certain cases, you also have websites like OpenGov and like basically for the state of New York, you have OpenBook in New York. Those are places where you can download basically spending data. You can download budgets, etc. Those who are good would allow you to download it in Excel or CSV. Many of them, you're still stuck with PDFs. We went to Trenton, just to step back and to tell you that this is not just for the financial statement. This is for all types of reporting. We went to Trenton and we talked to the Division of Local Government Services. And those people, they have the authority within New Jersey to mandate and require all governmental entities, all municipalities, etc., to file their budgets in Excel or in any format they want. Why do they require that? Until recently, they used to give them, there's a format, a template of Excel on their website. So any municipality can actually go download it, use it as is, and send it back. What do? And then they print it and send in many cases, they send the hard copy. At that point, yes, they do. So what happens is that they use their own template or the template that was provided by the Division of Local Government Services. They download that template, again, or they use their own. They fill it out, print it, either as PDF or as hard copy, send it back to the division, their employee would take that copy, re-enter it in the system, retype all the numbers. Now, do you see any problem here? What's the problem? You may make mistakes. And why? Because we humans are not perfect. We make, except who? Thank you. That's correct. You should have said that. But anyways, I'll forgive you. For now. Basically, you have all these possibilities of making mistakes. Plus, this is redundant. Why? How many people are doing the same thing? You have one person who entered the data at the municipality, and then they filed it, etc. They sent it. Another person is doing the same thing. So this is inefficient. It takes longer. Much, much longer. Oh yeah. And this is, who's paying for that?
Taxpayers.
We are paying for that. Taxpayers are paying for that. And even if you try to get this information, from them, you have the right to request any kind of any information you want from those municipalities, right? You can ask for the budget. What format are they going to give you? PDF. Until recently, I think it was in December, where we learned that one court, an actual court, ruled in favor of one of the citizens who requested that the data would be given to them in a usable format. So now, we're not talking about the availability. The data is available, but is it accessible? So when you have access to Emma, there's another problem with Emma. There you only find the CAFR statements for those municipalities who issue bonds, which is to mean it is incomplete. You cannot say that this is a complete, it's for all municipalities. No, it's not. It's for those who issue bonds. Let's say that you live in an area where your municipality does not issue a bond, then you cannot find it on Emma. Okay, let's forget about completeness for now. Again, let's talk about accessibility. You have a problem with accessing the data. You find it online, it's available in PDF, so you still have to extract it. Trust me, extracting data from PDFs it's not a joke. It's not an easy task. Like you said, tables are messed up. You have to rearrange them. You have to verify that. We're working on a project that is similar to the armchair auditors, where a CPA from New Jersey is requesting those certain reports. Once he gets them, he's extracting them. He was very happy that he wrote a script in ACL that would extract tables and extract the information from the PDF in an excellent way. Lower your hands. Who can tell me what bad surprise he was in later on when he tried to get the same type of data from another area, from another county? They did not have the same layout. And what does that mean? So if you don't have the same layout, Kishank, what would you do if you don't have the same layout? You have to standardize it. So at this point, the script that you used for the first county will not necessarily work for the second one, right? And going back to the problem of not knowing what those items are. So the problem is that there is a lack of standardization in the financial reports of governmental entities. So it's not just a PDF. It's not even if you extract it, even if you receive it in Excel. What's the problem? There's still a problem. Those items do not mean the same thing. The reporting is not the same. So the problem is actually bigger than simply saying that it's PDF and we cannot access the data. This adds tremendously to it. Problem for the citizens. You are a citizen and you want to analyze this data to see, for example, how your municipality are using those taxes compared to others. If you are talking about policymakers as well, you're talking about bond analysts, investors, creditors, all these people who want to use those reports. Academics, if you want to use this kind of data to run reports, to run some kind of analysis. Again, it's not easy for all these users. We tried ourselves. When even for like PhD students and faculty members who try to extract certain data from those reports. That's not easy. And I'm not saying that just the PDF. To really get any comparability between different areas, to find an anomaly, to find, for example, or to try and come up to propose a model or to develop a model that would predict entities that are in distress. Could you, for example, predict that there would be problems in Detroit in advance, before it actually went bankrupt? Could you? Theoretically speaking, yes. If you had access to the data, you could have compared their performance. You could have run some time series analysis, and basically you could also look across municipalities or across cities, etc. And then you would have found that there's something wrong with that entity. But that was not possible. Yes?
For example, like to illustrate, like, you know, the emails going out with Professor Solich article in the recent New Jersey newspaper about the New Jersey Transportation Fund. And pretty much they're talking about how it's going bankrupt, right? There's no money left. And so I looked into it a little bit. I was very curious, looking into audit reports. And they say like per mile, we spend like $45,000 per mile just on maintenance. And if you look at other states, they say 10,500 is like the average expenditure. The question is whether expenditures are the same in that category or not. We don't know if they're comparable.
Because it simply says that this is expenditures per mile, but you have no idea what this expenditure involves. What does it include? What items does it include? You were saying, you were asking something else, Michael? Yes, this is true.
I'm just trying to point out that you bring your discussion back to researchers very quickly. Perhaps for the non-American students, you might explain something about the background of government reporting in America.
So the problem with, so basically, the governmental reporting in the US, you have those financial statements that are usually required by the state would require, has the authority to require under their, for all the entities who are, for example, New Jersey, they have the right to require standard format, etc., from their municipalities who are in that area. The US government, the federal government, does not have the right to mandate it across the US. So this is something that you need to understand. It's not like where the SEC would require for all publicly traded companies. This is where the federal government can mandate standardized reports for the filings that those governmental entities file to specifically to the federal government. But for the reports that are sent or filed to the state, each state has the right to take their own standards. And this is why, like in New Jersey, they don't follow GASB. They have their own standards. Yes? I think most of them, there are like a couple of them, like 2 or 3 maybe. They are, it's not, yes. It's again, they have different terminologies. So unless the state, yes, so it depends on what they require. But like we said with the example of the budget, they don't require it. They have the authority to require it, but they did not require that all the entities, all the municipalities, for example, use the same standardized template. Yeah, so they are supposed to report their budgets to the Division of Local Government Services, but they did not require that it would be sent in standardized way.
And that's what's so crazy, that we're required to pay taxes. Try
So this is the thing.
Well, I mean, as researchers, maybe you should ask why it's crazy.
Why is it the case?
Why is it crazy? Why does a crazy system like that exist?
I mean, many people put a third of their income on taxes.
You mean why is it not standardized? There are several, I think there are several aspects to it. There's like politics. You need the pressure. You need who's asking for it. It's like what Miklos asks, like what Miklos says. Do you guys like to be graded? Do you? That's the point. See? See, Rutgers did not pay the bill. Go ahead. Sorry?
Whether the state government will analyze the financial report for each cities in the state. If the items are not comparable, how the local government, the state level government to analyze this report?
They can basically they look at the books and they see whether it is. You mean the auditors, how they audit it, right? They audit it. They audit, but this is why in many cases you also have problems. I was talking to Irfan the other day and he gave I can't remember the numbers, but for like pension and like for unfunded pensions in New Jersey, it's in the billions of dollars. What does that mean? They don't have money. This is the contribution of NJ to your pension. What does that mean? That later on, the government will have to pay this money. Anyways, they will have to pay this money, but where are they going to get it from? Are they auditing their financial statements? Yes, they are. However, are they actually comparing them? Are they comparing them to, for example, other entities? Are they comparing how they are doing? I don't think so.
Well, the thing is, like, since it's cash-based modified accrual, it means that they have to meet their budget every year. They can't overspend. So the obligations don't sit on the balance sheet. They sit outside the balance sheet. A financial statement. So you don't see that. You don't have to look for it. I mean, they just put it aside, and they're supposed to be funding it out of the regular operational money, but they don't a lot of times, or they take money away from it to fund other expenses. What Chrissy did during this year, I believe, took money out of the pension fund, put it towards regular state expenses. And there's a lot of manipulation that goes on with the books to make sure the budget's in balance at the end of the year, because it's a cash-based account.
Have you guys seen a CAFR statement? Okay, let me show you a CAFR statement of New Jersey. It will definitely not fit on one slide. That's definitely not going to fit on one slide. So this is the CAFR statement here.
Another thing we should talk about, like also, the publicly traded companies, they're mandated to file their financial reports in 60 days.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
They can take 6 months to report this.
It can take up to 6 months sometimes to report those CAFR statements. And if you are a citizen, so this is to go back to your question, Michael, who would want to, for example, use or who would ask for more transparency or more accessibility of data, something that you would understand. This is the CAFR statement for New Jersey. It is it's over 300 pages. And give me 1 second, sorry. Even if you try to look at these ones, you have a lot of information that is included in it. And let's say that you're trying to extract certain information to run analysis. Those tables, they are, again, because it's PDF, you have to extract those tables more or less manually to run analysis. Now, there is a huge need to go back to this one here. So this is simply to show you the amount of information that is there But again, if you look at the specific items, they don't mean the same. So let's say that you are a citizen. You want to see how much your municipality is paying for dispatch. This guy, Hugh Sharkey, we talked about, like the CPA from New Jersey, he wanted to compare the cost of dispatch. Dispatch is when you call the 911, for example, and they come to the rescue. So in this case, why did it, this is what he did not, he saw that, he just ran some analysis to see how much it costs compared to the county. I don't remember the numbers.
200,000 versus, like, I think the dispatch county was at 75,000.
75,000.
Their town dispatch getting $200,000.
So basically it was like 3 times more or less what they pay was 3 times what is paid by the county. And the question was why? This is like a citizen, a taxpayer who wanted to see where his money was going. He's paying all these taxes and he wants to see where is it going. So there's a huge demand for transparency. This guy, in order to just get this very simple information, he had to request the data. He had to extract the data from PDF to Excel, etc. He had to run the analysis because there was simply no place where he could download this information and run this analysis. And this is a CPA with some experience who knows what these items mean. And this is a very simple thing. If you're trying to run something a little bit more complex, you cannot compare. You basically might be comparing apples to oranges. When you try to compare, even like when we looked at the net assets, the statement of net assets, I will show you this Excel file. You had all these elements under each section used by different states. So state, we looked at the state and not municipalities. Why was that? Do you remember that one, Chow? Do you remember that, Denise? This is basically what we tried to do here was simply, and I will show you what. We were trying to simply see, this is, for example, revenues and expenditures changes. Statement of activities, again, same thing. We try to see the frequency of these items. How many times each item would show up. So for example, I want to run some analysis and I want to see what education is in comparison in one area in my municipality compared to, for example, I live in Jersey City, so Jersey City compared to Newark. I can't really directly say that those are the same numbers. You have to see what are the items underneath that one. If you're trying to see, look at how many items, they show up only one time. Those are, for example, public safety and I think corrections. And the other one underneath it is public safety. Yeah, let me just increase the font. Is it better like this? Yeah. Okay, so this is public safety. You have public safety. And then you have public safety and corrections, public safety and criminal justice. Each one of them is used by a different state. So for example, public safety was used by Oregon and New York. Public safety and corrections is by Michigan. Criminal justice is used by New Jersey. Are they talking about the same thing or not? That's not a simple question. In order to do that, in order to find this kind of transparency, what do you need? Standards. You said it earlier. What do you need? Standardized, basically standardized terminology, standardized taxonomy. That when you're talking about public safety, you know what's underneath that one. Again, if you're trying to do that across the US, what's the problem? What's the problem if you're trying to do that across the whole US? 50 states, each one of them is sovereign state. So you cannot really say that, okay, the GASB cannot come and say that this is how it's supposed to be, period. Unless there was a change at the level of the Congress. You have to change it to pass it into law. And this is what happened in what? The federal government can mandate it for the reportings that all these entities have to report to the federal government. But you still, single audit reports. Those are reports that are filed by grantees. This is whenever a governmental entity receives a grant of, it used to be 500, now it's 750. It used to be 500, now they raised it to 750. And the reason why they increased the threshold was simply because they could not handle. This is what they said. Their argument was that we have too many reports. We don't have the means of verifying or of auditing all these entities. So they increased their threshold to 750. Whenever an entity receives federal grants of 750,000 and more, they are required to file a report, a standardized report that is called single audit filing. But this is in addition to the other reports. Again, we are hit with what here? Inefficiency. What are you doing at this point? The single audit report, they have to file it in the same format because it's the federal government. So the federal government is requiring. Yes, it's the same one. Yes, for the federal government. This is the problem for them. The preparers, the entities who are preparing those reports, sometimes they have to use for different entities, for different reports, they use different standards. So it's not like they can use the same data that they collected and reuse it. The work is redundant. Each report is prepared separately for a separate entity. They are actually, this is what we're getting at. They are starting with the Data Act. This is what the question was like, what do you think that the government has got to do or should do? Which ones? Now there is now there is the Data Act. Okay, so the Data Act, it passed into law last year. And I was going to talk about that later on. This is actually where we were supposed to talk about the stakeholders. So before we move on to the Data Act, who uses this information? Who are the stakeholders, not just the users? Who are the stakeholders when it comes to governmental reporting? Sorry? Citizens, yes. So we have the citizens. And I know I have bad handwriting. Just deal with it. Try to decipher it, yes.
What's difficult about this, because going back to that transportation fund, I looked at the audit report. The auditors gave it a white color. But you listen to that, but now they're saying they're about bankrupt. So, the problem is that, the operational audit.
NJMTA, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Operational audits are not being conducted with the information we have, or they don't have the level of information.
It's, this is one of the things, like when I talked about, but Michael, but there is a problem here. At this point, let's talk about pension. With pension, because those unfunded pension liabilities, New Jersey has like $17 billion that they will have to raise in one way or another later on from future taxpayers. So future taxpayers are paying for services that we are receiving right now. And I think in the same way that we are probably paying for services that people received in the past. It's more or less like a Ponzi scheme. Well, that is that is basically done by New Jersey. And I think by the end of the day, we will all be fired. But this is the case. And why is that? Because if you look at those reports, and this information I got it from Irfan. Irfan, who is like, it took him hours with all his experience. It took him hours to look at all the details to find this small thing. If you didn't look at it, you'd have said also that the audit report was flying colors, with flying colors. So it's not even for sophisticated users, it's not easy to extract this information. So the citizens who are trying to learn about how their municipality is doing, where their tax money is going, you get a parking ticket. I like this example. You get a parking ticket. You're upset. You go to pay it. You pay it at the municipality, right? And then you want to see, where does this money go? There was an article that, yes, Chao, go ahead. Yes.
And for those reports from municipalities, they, if we say they all have no standardized formats, so for those state governments, they also need to read those different formats and try to understand what
I'll give you an example to tell you about this. In New Jersey, they report two numbers as pension expenses. You have, I think, pension expenses and pension expenditures. What do those two mean? The difference between the two is like $14 billion. So you look at the statement, you see that there's pension expenditures, and you also have pension expenses. I always get confused. I always have to go back and look at it. One of them looks at what is supposed to be paid as pension. So you see, New Jersey have a pension fund where they are supposed to put money in it. There are two numbers. One number which is actually what is actually deposited in that account. There's also another fund, another number, which is what they are supposed to put. So one of them is what is actually deposited, one of them is what is supposed to be deposited. But they don't tell you that. So in the report, you'd have pension expenditures and pension expenses. And you have two different numbers. So which one is correct? So unless you are really good and very, very well informed in governmental accounting, you will not understand the difference between the two. It is an unfunded liability. But where does this unfunded liability comes from?
Because it can't be covered by the operational budget, by the calculated budget. That's the problem. The auditor will say this is okay, they get a seal of approval. That's not the same as explain what it really means to you as a citizen.
You as a citizen, you're paying taxes, and you want to know also that in the future, your future is secure, that you will be getting your pension. They're not going to basically not pay it or anything like that. So you want to know that you're fine. Which number are you going to use? You have pension expenditures and pension expenses. And if you did not really specifically know about this item, you look at those two numbers, and as the reports can basically look at either one of them. Both of them are correct. It's not like one of them is not correct. It could be misleading. And in a way, I'm using misleading loosely here. It's simply that it's not easy to understand which one of them makes more sense to you as a stakeholder. So this is as a citizen.
You're using the word stakeholder, sort of putting this in the framework of public reporting, financial reporting.
This is financial reporting.
So perhaps we talk about the differences between financial reporting and governmental reporting.
No, this is financial reporting of governmental entities.
Private,
Between the private sector, etc. So basically, when we talk about stakeholders, this could be, I will get to that in a second. So basically, you have, for the stakeholders, you have citizens, who else? bondholders, investors, right? You have creditors. Who else? Tell me. You? Who else do you think that is involved or would be a stakeholder in government reporting? Who cares about that? Academics, that's true. So academics.
Party not in government.
Who?
The party not in government.
The party?
Politicians.
Not in the government? So politicians.
That's the difference, right? You don't find such a thing.
Those are not, so those are different from the stakeholder. This is for governmental reporting. Who else? You have also policymakers, right? Regulators. So we have regulators. Right? You have, of course, auditors, etc.
So who would you consider here the equivalent of the shareholder?
It's different. Shareholders are in to make some money. They want to know whether the company is the performance measure between governmental entities and private companies is different. What's the performance measure with regards to the private companies? Profits. Basically, if you invest in a certain company, you want to see some money back. You want to see some return on your investment. But anyways, like you have the option of investing in company A or not, but you don't have the option of not paying taxes. So you are paying those taxes. You want to know, are you receiving enough services in return? I'll tell you what, for example, property taxes. We pay a lot as property taxes in my area. When we had snow, the municipality did not plow the streets for like weeks. We were stuck. We had to do it ourselves. In this case, I want to know what they are doing with the money that I'm paying. That's different. So as a stakeholder here, I'm a citizen. Yes? So bond holders, again, those are people who are investing, but they want to know also. Because Emma reports, for example, the credit rating at the time of issuing those debts. You don't have more updated information unless you are going to look inside those CAFR statements. And again, that's not an easy task to do for regular citizens.
Let's go back to the example of the slope line, right? I mean, you may want to know where the money goes.
Yeah.
I think most of your neighbors would just want the street plowed, right?
So I want to know where my money goes
Same thing.
because I'm not satisfied with their plowing.
You understand? I mean, that's the difference. If you're buying a shareholder in a company, the profits come back to you, right?
Yes.
Dividends or capital gains. But if you are a citizen,
Yeah,
you don't really care where the money goes as long as you get the service you want.
exactly. My profits at that point are
But they're not the same thing, and I think it's important when we do research in governmental accounting to appreciate the difference. I mean, there's fundamental differences between these two,
the users.
frameworks.
Definitely.
Reporting of stakeholders, what they want, and so on. Because otherwise, it's very easy to say, well, we are doing XPRL for private reporting, so obviously we should do it for governmental reporting. But
No,
obvious
it's
because
not that obvious because it's not the same thing. It's not automatically the same thing.
It's not clear which stakeholders want this, and they may have very different types of.
There is an increased pressure by the public on various governmental entities that they want added transparency.
Sorry, you cannot make statements.
I'm not making statements. That was the lady from the Division of Local Government who said that people are requesting data.
For the last 50 years, governmental reporting has not kept up to date with private sector reporting. So there's a reason for that, right?
But it's a service
But-
measurement. It's not the profit. If government and non-profits are measured by the level of service, efficiency of the service, whether money is spent appropriately. But
Yeah.
it's very difficult to measure. I mean, it's an operational audit that has to be done, not a financial audit, really, quite frankly.
Well, so that's the difference then, right? That
Right,
needs to be taken
that's-
into
That's true.
One of the arguments that Republicans make against public sector workers is that they don't care whether long as they get their share, right? Okay, so I mean, the point is that you don't have that clean-cut measure like profits that everybody can agree upon.
No, it's not. It's not. This is why I said that it is different performance measures.
Okay, I mean, talking to PhD
How-
students, I would say, as researchers, we need to think about those differences and how they might affect the way we look at reporting the government sector, right? That cannot just transfer our perspective from the private sector that we're used to this environment. So like stakeholders, the meaning of a stakeholder is very different here than it might be in Wall Street, right?
Definitely, those are people who are trying here. Here the return on investment is basically the level of services that you're receiving if you are a citizen, compared to, for example, return on investment as in how much money you're receiving back from your investment in certain company. But to go back to like your question about like who's asking for this, I wasn't making just a regular statement. We were talking to this lady Anne from the Division of Local Government Services in New Jersey. I'm talking here only, and there's an increased demand on those files to be in a usable format. And this is why they actually started an initiative that will be starting 2016. I think it's in the spring of 2016, where all those budgets will be made available for download in Excel or CSV, basically in a usable format. And this was a court order. So once a municipality was ordered by court to provide this kind of information, that means that there is an increased pressure to provide this type of information in a more transparent way. And actually, if you look at it, other governments, they actually did start with mandating but they don't have the problem that the US has. So there they can mandate a standardized taxonomy. They can say that, okay, so those files have to be reported in this using this taxonomy. This term means that. Yes.
That could be the gentleman in Brazil we were talking to.
Bruno?
Bruno, he was like saying that in the data conference that the Data Transparency Coalition held earlier this summer, he was talking about how without that mandate it's almost impossible to do. He said that in the conference there. Because they're mandating on the central level, but the states have to report.
Again, we go back to the problem of like who wants to be graded. Now, who's asking for more transparency? Is it the preparer who wants to provide more information? Then why don't they do it now? If it was not to be mandated or something like that. Yes.
When you say transparency with the US, do you mean the standards like between municipalities or with the government? Is it the same standards like when they say expenditures? Does it mean the same thing, or are you talking about the access to the data and visibility?
Well, transparency would here means easier access to the data itself.